Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified of any future shows. Feel free to leave comments down below, and please smash that thumbs up. It helps the show out. Good morning, people. First off, I wanted to tell everybody, I just noticed that the time that's listed when it says what time my show is going to be, it should be in Central Time, United States, because I am in Alabama. So I don't know what time it's telling you. I've seen two different times. I start between what's on my computer and what shows up in YouTube on my Roku TV. It's two different times. So I have no idea what y'all are seeing. But anytime there's a time listed there, it'll be Central Time in the United States. So just want to make sure I put that out there for anybody who's watching. I noticed there were some people in here before and then left. I don't know if they're back or what. So I realized that one of the first things I should have done is talk about how I became a rideshare driver. So this morning I got up, decided that's what I'll do this morning while I'm having my coffee, is tell you how and why I became a rideshare driver. Back in 2015, I guess, I actually thought about doing Uber and Lyft for a while, since, I don't know, started back in 2012, 2011, whatever it was. But I never, well, I think I looked into it at first because I was in Ohio, and they didn't have any markets for me to drive in the beginning. And then I forgot about it for a while. Then I thought about it again because somebody had mentioned something about they had Uber and Lyft in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is, I was in Ohio, but I was right across the state line from Fort Wayne. So I thought, oh, I should look into that again, and then forgot about it again. There's a lot of crap was going on between me and my ex, and I guess she's a double ex, really. She was my first wife, who I tried to get back with, and then she started cheating on me, so she became my ex the second time. So a double ex, I guess. Anyway, so I moved to a little town called Grover Hill, Ohio, and I was working at a plastic recycling plant called PRT, Plastic Recycling Technology, just north of Van Wert in Ohio. And decided, after I'd been working there a year, I guess, I went ahead and put my application into Uber and Lyft. And they accepted me, and I said, well, yeah, I should go and try, because at the time you had to specify a city, and the only city near me was Fort Wayne, Indiana. So I had to go to Fort Wayne, and when me and the double X were still together, Fort Wayne was about 20-30 minutes away. Then when I moved to Grover Hill, it was more like 45 minutes away. So it was a long way to go just to drive. So I wanted to wait until I had an excuse to be in Fort Wayne, and then give it a try, rather than spending, gas money driving all the way out there just to potentially find out it's a bunch of crap. So I tore a bicep muscle, had to have surgery, and then when I was in recovery, I couldn't drive for 6 months. And finally, after I finished my recovery from that, I said, hey, you know what? Let me give that Uber thing a chance. That was in 2016. Hold on a second, folks. I got to sneeze, I think. So, I started driving for Uber and Lyft in, when was that? Like July, August of 2016, somewhere around there. And I was making more money. I was making more money on a Friday and Saturday night than I do all week here in Huntsville, Alabama. The first year I was down here, it was pretty close. But now, mind you, that's pretty, like, I was working Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And I pretty much still do that. Sometimes I work on Monday and Tuesday. And I made more on Friday and Saturday night in Fort Wayne than those 4 nights down here. I got cat hair or something on my nose. It's tickling the hell out of me. So when I was after I started, I gave it a shot. First I just putzed around with it, and I didn't really make a heck of a lot. I turned on the app and drove up and down the main street a couple of times and didn't get any calls. And I said, screw this, I'm at home, And then I went and looked into it a little bit and found, oh yeah, you got to sit somewhere, you got to find a good place and all that stuff. What the hell was that all about? And so I went back out and tried it again and found myself a good place. And, it was off to the races. I don't think I sat still more than 10 minutes before I'd get another ride, either on Uber or Lyft. And up there, it was 50-50. It was pretty even, Lyft and Uber. Down here, not at all. Down here, it's pretty much, well, in town, it's Uber. At the airport, it's Lyft. But there's a reason for that, which, if you look at my video about losing money at the airport, you'll find out why I make more money on Lyft than I do Uber at the airport. Actually, come to think of it, I get more Lyft calls out in that Madison area, period. So maybe it's just a Huntsville, Madison, depending on the area, because I know in Huntsville, I don't get very many calls on Lyft. I can go days without getting a single call on Lyft. So, yeah, it was 50-50 Lyft and Uber. I didn't sit for more than 10 minutes before I had a call. And I was going constantly all night. And I would go home with minimum of $30 worth of cash tips every night that I worked. Well, let's say Friday and Saturday. And, 150 to 150 up, on the app. So I was making good money. And then I decided to get a little more serious about it. So I put in more hours, and it turned out I was making as much money just working Friday and Saturday as I was at the factory I was working at. So I decided to quit the factory and just start driving Uber and Lyft full time. So, well, full time. I started out just Friday and Saturday was really, and then I was getting ready to move. I had decided to, I was a bodybuilder. I was in pretty good shape. And I was going to get into being a personal trainer and that kind of thing. I started a YouTube channel for that. And actually started that before I tore the bicep muscle. And then when I tore the bicep muscle, I decided to go ahead and gain weight and then have everybody lose weight with me, you know, that kind of thing. And so it took me forever. It took me like 3 months to gain a pound. But once I started gaining, it was off, you know, because I was keto adapted, which means my body was adapted to burning fat, not carbohydrates. And when you're fully keto adapted, you can have carbohydrates, even high doses of, I say doses like it's a drug, which it is, high doses of carbohydrates, and still go right back into ketosis. Your body is adapted. That's the way it is. And what I discovered is, well, this isn't a fitness thing. Anyway, so while I was waiting for the surgery, they told me I took a lot of supplements as a bodybuilder. They told me go off the supplements because they could cause abnormal scarring and they might not be able to repair my bicep muscle. So I said, okay. And they also wanted me to, you know, go off of ketosis as well and start eating a regular SAD, you know, standard American diet. So I did that too. And that's what really gave me the idea to gain the weight and have everyone lose weight with me afterwards. So when I had gotten, I just gotten cleared to start lifting weights again. And I was getting ready. I had to go to Florida and move my mother and my sister to Alabama, which is where my father is, because he had an extra house they were going to move into. My mother had cancer. My sister had multiple sclerosis. And I was going to help them move up there and then, you know, stay for a little bit, get a motorhome, and then work my way to California, not work, but travel, you know, to California and use Lyft, Uber and Lyft as a means of making money along the way if I needed to. And then when I got to California, I was going to go on, try to go on American Ninja Warrior and Survivor. And I was also thinking about doing that Naked and Afraid show. So that was my plan. So about a week, literally a week, actually I was behind. I postponed leaving because I didn't want to put my dog to sleep right just then. And a week before I changed it to that I was gonna do it, actually a couple of days before I was going to put my dog to sleep and then start packing and getting ready to go. I got hospitalized. My right leg stopped working altogether. It was literally, you know, if I tried to move my toes, which is a weird thing, if I try to move my toes, I think I'm moving my toes, but they weren't moving. So they diagnosed me with multiple sclerosis and told me I'd never walk again. So my sister had been diagnosed in 2006, and I had actually contacted a doctor back in 1998, I think it was 98, somewhere around there, because I was having just weird things going on with me. I started looking into it, and the symptoms, one of them was Lemaitre sign, which is when you tip your head down, you get kind of an electrical jolt feeling running out your arms and your legs, down your back and that. So I found out that was a sign of MS. And back then, they said that a man in his 30s who starts presenting with MS has about 10 years to live, because it's, you know, normally progressive form of MS, and it progresses very rapidly and you die within 10 years. So I contacted a doctor on ask.com, you know, that I think it's still around. And I said, this is what's going on. And he said, now the odds of you having MS are slim to none. Said you're way too old. You would have presented long before now, and it's more rare. This is what he told me now, so don't jump on me if you know differently. It's more rare in men than it is women, and so he said, "Have you ever had a neck injury?" I told him when I was in high school I was wrestling and I fractured C1, 2, and 3, and he said that's probably what it is. The fracture is calcifying and it's irritating the myelin sheath in your cervical spine, and you're gonna have numbness and tingling, and eventually you might need to have surgery to fix it. I said, oh, okay. So I went on thinking that's what it is, and I looked into ways to help maintain the health of my spine, and one of them was a supplement that's also used in bodybuilding called acetyl-L-carnitine, because the myelin sheath is made of fat. Well, actually, it's not something I found in my research that was spelled out. It was something that in my research I came to the conclusion myself, because of the way this supplement works, that it would have to help with the spine. It does help with other, like traumatic brain injuries and that kind of thing. So I thought, well, it can't hurt. Can't hurt my spine, right? So I started taking that, and started lifting weights and stuff. And anyway, turns out when the doctor talked to me about that I would never walk again, he asked me, he said, how in the world did you make it to 52 years old without being diagnosed? He said, nobody's ever talked to you about maybe you might have MS or anything? I said, no. And he was like perplexed. And because I have relapsing remitting, which means I've had it probably my whole life, at least since my late teens, early 20s. And I can actually think back to some things that happened when I was, late teens, early 20s that were more than likely MS symptoms, but they were very, very light symptoms. But now that I know how to recognize them and what they are, I'm fairly certain that's what it was. But one of the hallmark early symptoms is going blind in one eye, and that's never happened to me. And he asked me, he said, "You never gone blind in one eye?" I said, "No." So he was perplexed. So I went back to my while he was in my hospital. When he left, I grabbed my laptop and started doing research. Why? What is going on? What did they give MS patients that I may have been taking? As far as my supplements, because I took a lot of supplements, and maybe there's a correlation there, right, to why I haven't been prescribed or diagnosed in so long. And he was surprised. He thought that I should have been a paraplegic because I haven't been on any medication. And here I am, 52, and this was really the first major episode I had in my whole life. I had other things, numbness and tingling coming up my hands. I couldn't write as well. I used to be able to draw, like sketch people and stuff. I couldn't do that anymore but see, my mother had something called essential tremors. And when she would try to use a mouse, her hand would, like jitter. And mine was doing that. And she said, "Oh, you probably have the same thing I have." So that's what I thought was going on. It was I had a fracture, and I had this nervous disorder that my mother had. And she sent me her medication that she uses for it, which evidently I'm allergic to, so I couldn't use it. The gabapentin. And so I just chalked it up to that. I said, well, if I'm allergic to the medication, I can't take it. And I'll just have to deal with it, right? Life goes on. So I did the research. I saw that the Mayo Clinic I know they did an article about acetyl L-carnitine helping with MS fatigue, and that they were given. Now I can't find that article now. Of course, I haven't looked real hard, but I can't find it now. There is one on their site about how there's no what do you call it, clinical evidence that there's a connection between acetyl L-carnitine and MS fatigue. That's about it. But I know that that's where I saw it when I was in the hospital. And I went, oh, that's that stuff that I was using to hopefully help with my spinal cord health. So let me order that and have that sent to my hospital room, because I'd stopped taking it when I was waiting for my surgery. So I had it shipped to my hospital room, ordered it on Amazon, and I mega dosed on it. The next morning, I could stand up. The next morning, I was better. So, and every day after that, I improved by leaps and bounds. I mean, the occupational therapy people, I mean, at this point, I still needed nurses to help me get from the bed to a wheelchair and to roll over and stuff. And I mean, all kinds of, stuff. Within a week, I was like getting around on my own. They actually were getting mad at me because I would, turn off the bed alarm and stuff, because I wasn't supposed to get up without help, because I didn't want them helping me anymore, So anyway, I became a pain in the butt to them. But I was getting better, and now today I walk with a cane. I walk like a 90-year-old man. And actually, when I was in therapy, I told them I wanted them to show me how to walk with a cane. I mean, we all think we know when you watch a thing, and they showed me, which isn't the way I actually do it, because I don't use a cane for what they taught me to use it for, and that's to support, my leg. My right leg is, well, really, it's not. It's a toss-up. They're weak in different ways, but you're supposed to use the cane with the leg as you're walking, right? I use it for balance. I use it so that I can tell where the ground is, because like if I close my eyes, I can't tell which way is up, and I'll fall over. If I blink at the wrong time, I'll do that. So I use the cane to kind of help with my balance, just to keep myself right side up, and if I do start to fall over, I can use it to stop myself, that kind of thing. They really wanted me to use a walker and a wheelchair, and that's it. And around the house, because my knee got injured really badly by my ex-wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, and so it's not very stable. I don't walk as well, so I do use a walker to get around here in the house. My knee's getting better. Once it's better, I should, probably, and I've started kind of not using it now and then. Anyway, so my father told me to move down to Alabama because he had an extra house. He used to flip houses. And he got congestive heart failure, and he couldn't work on him anymore, so he had one left over, and he asked me to come down in case I needed family, because even though I seemed to be getting better, it was still up in the air what was going to go on with me. So I said, all right. It's the house that I was supposed to move my mother and my sister into, right? So I came down to Alabama, moved into this house. Now my mother and my sister were still coming here. So a couple of months later, my mother and sister came. Now it's a 3-bedroom house. I'm not real happy about it, but what are you going to do, right? Now all of a sudden I've gone from being able to do it, work in a factory, and I was going to travel the world. I had money in the bank I've burned up all of my savings. I'm almost out of money. I couldn't work because I could barely drive. I had not recovered to the point that I trusted myself driving yet. I tried to drive. I ended up running over a curb at McDonald's. And that was the only thing I really did, but that was enough. It made me decide I needed to take a few weeks, let myself get a little more stronger, a little more strength, and then start driving. So I didn't start driving down here in Alabama, Huntsville area until this is March or April of 2017. Yeah. Is that it, 2017? Did I come down here in 2017? No, it must have been 2018. Because I came down here just before Christmas in 2017. And that's when my dog showed up on the porch half dead. So it was a puppy. It was like 20 degrees, and she's a short-haired, lab pit bull mix. So 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard some weird noise on my porch. I look out there, and she's collapsed against the door. She was going into hypothermia. Anyway, so yeah, I started about March, April of 2018. And the year I started, I didn't do too bad those 4 days. I didn't make quite as much as I was making in Fort Wayne, but I was like, it's a smaller town. It's not in area, but I'm pretty sure it is in population. At least it seems to me. And they don't have the nightlife they had in Fort Wayne. In Fort Wayne, they had a bunch of colleges and they had dance clubs all over the place. That's how I made all my money up there, was driving college kids back and forth, bar to bar to bar. And I mean, they had some nice dance clubs up there. So down here, everything's downtown, basically. And you have some neighborhood like dive bars around, but for the most part, the main bars are downtown, Campus 805. You have like Diamonds in that down south, but that's pretty much it. And the only other thing to do is drive the airport that I've found so far. So I wasn't working the airport at all, because the airport, I went out there to work a couple of times, and I'd never worked it up north. Had never worked it at all. First time I even tried to work it was down here, but it was like dead. First time I went, it was at night. It was like 11:30 or something, 12 o'clock, and things weren't going on downtown. It was dead. So I said, let me go out to this airport and see what's going on. Most international. I've never been in a city where with an international airport, where the airport basically rolls up the sidewalks at 11 o'clock at night. Usually they go all night. So, I mean, I grew up in Boston. And so I went down there at like midnight thinking, oh, yeah, there'll be something going on, Nothing. I was like, I can't believe this, It's like you could see tumbleweeds going down the road and stuff. I said, this is crazy. This is an international airport, isn't it? Yeah. The smallest airport I had ever been in up until I got here was Lexington Airport in Lexington, Kentucky, back in 1989. It was, I forget how many, it had like 8 gates or something like that. It was like one hallway with the plant where the planes are, and then the front entrance, and that was it. That was the smallest airport I had ever been in until Huntsville. Even now, Huntsville is a smaller airport than Lexington was in 1989. It's crazy. I can't believe that in the 21st century there's an airport this small, an international airport. Anyway, so I said, this airport's crap. And I tried it again on a Friday or Saturday or something like that. And I ended up sitting there for, I don't know, like 3 hours. And there was like 16 to 20 in the Uber queue ahead of me. And I sat and sat and sat. I finally got one ride after like 3.5 hours, something like that. And it was for like $10. And I said, wait a minute now. I've been sitting here for 4 hours. I've made $10. I'm making like $2.50 an hour or something. I said, this is ridiculous. It's not worth it. So, that was the last time. I didn't work it again until I found out my nephew was working the airport, and he said he's making $100 a night. And I'm like, that's not possible. I've worked that. There's no way. You don't get enough rides in a short enough period of time, unless you're there all day. So anyway, I started working the airport, and I think he was exaggerating. And if you're watching, Brian, yeah, I think you were exaggerating how much you were making, but I don't know. Since I've worked there, I mean, there have been nights that I've made. However, using the trick that I talk about in my other video about the airport, if it wasn't for that, yeah, I'd probably making maybe $50 a night. Maybe a little more. The whole thing with the airport is that the majority of the runs you do are longer. Like if I work downtown, I could potentially work all night making only $3 runs, like back and forth between, bars, hotels, and that are right there down around downtown. And if I do that, I'm not going to make more than $50, $60 a night. The airport, you can do, like, let's see, last night I had one. That wasn't an airport run, I shouldn't say that. But the other day, what was it? Tuesday, I guess. What is today? Friday? Wednesday, I guess. I did three. I only did 3 runs, and I made $50 because 2 of them were like $20 runs. So that's the difference with the airport. But then I've also worked days at the airport where all my runs were like $4. And I only had one that was, I think it was 14. That was my worst night so far working the airport. I've only been doing it since about the first of the year. And my original plan was to work the airport like in the morning, and then around 9-10 o'clock, depending on what night it is, transition to downtown, taking the drunks home. So, but since my nephew has talked me into staying at the airport because the last couple of flights are from Atlanta, and well, I know Atlanta's one of them. I think the Atlanta flight he's saying is there's usually long, trips. So I've been giving it a couple more weeks of doing it because I can always go back to driving the drunks home, and I'm waiting to get a set of floor mats and seat covers because I'm in Fort Wayne. Nobody ever puked in my car. Down here, it's happened 2 or 3 times now, and it's very expensive to have it cleaned if you have it done right, like sanitized, because I have cloth seats. I don't have leather or vinyl or whatever. So I have to have my seats steam cleaned. And it costs about $200 to have that done because they have to use a special steam cleaner that will not only clean it, but it also shoots the water is at a high enough temperature that it sterilizes the fabric as it's cleaning it, because you don't want people catching microbes or germs or whatever off of somebody because they threw up in your car. So I'm getting seat covers that I can wash, and floor mats that have high edges around it, so I can just take them out like a bowl and pour and then rinse them, and I'm good. So that's going to cost me about $100 or so. So I need to get an extra $150, and then I'll start driving the drunks home again. And in the meantime, we're going to see how the airport's doing, so I have a really good idea of what the business is like, and then I can make a direct comparison and decide which nights I should do which one and that kind of thing. So, and now, because this MS, the only job I can do is drive for Uber and Lyft. So once upon a time, I made $92,000 a year as an internet guy, network engineer. I owned my own internet company in Ohio for like 6 years. That's a whole other story, but before it got destroyed by her ex. And then that's why I ended up in the straight labor at the recycling plant, because the level I was at, the only way to I wasn't going to get a job in some small Ohio town. I had to go to some big city. Pretty much Silicon Valley would be my best bet for a job, because I had like the equivalent of a master's degree in network engineering and computer science and all that stuff. So I was overqualified. I actually got flown to Edward Jones to interview with Edward Jones in St. Louis, and to be one of their network engineers, and I was overqualified. The interview at Scientific Atlanta, just north of Atlanta, they had me there for 3 days. I forget how many. I went through 20 interviews, I think, and they said I was overqualified. In the end, I think that was crap. There was something else that happened, but not my fault. It was well, anyway, something else. But yeah, so I would have to have gone to like Silicon Valley or whatever. And now, you know, because my nerves are so messed up, I can barely walk. You know, it's pretty much out of the question. I could work from home and do that stuff for people, but I'm going to see if I can get something. I'm always on the lookout for something like that, but I've yet to find anything like that. So Lyft and Uber is the only thing I can do. It's the only way I make money. And now I'm pretty much down to, I don't think you'd call it paycheck to paycheck, but you know, what I make off of Uber every night, I deposit it in my account, and that's how I go. You know, and thankfully, I'm glad that Uber and Lyft have that ability to where I can go out and just work and then hit cash out, and bam, I have money in the account. Because if it wasn't for that, if I had to wait, you know, to get a paycheck the end of the week or next week or whatever, yeah, I'd be in rough shape several times by now. Anyway, man, this has been long. Let me put my glasses on so I can actually read my monitor. How long? An hour and 10 minutes. Sorry about that, people. I'm just sitting here rambling on. Anyway, that's my story. If you can, I'd like to have some of you guys, if you're rideshare drivers, come on my show and tell your story. If you have an intriguing story about why you've become a rideshare driver, you know, scary story, whatever. If there's something interesting about how you became a rideshare driver, or like say if you've been robbed or something happened while you were a rideshare driver, any kind of interesting stories you might have, you know, send me a message and let me know about it. I'd like to have you come on the show and tell your story. It'd be interesting. So you can just go ahead and leave a comment. I'll get it, and I'll get back to you. I can't remember what email I'm using for this channel right now. So, oh, that's weird. Why is it flipping back and forth between 1 and 2 concurrent viewers? Oh. Anyway, let me have a look here real quick, see if I can remember what email am I using for this. Anyway, leave a comment down below. That's good enough. And then I'll email you back, and then you'll know what email I'm using. Once I figure it out, I think I have to set one up still for this because it's a fairly new channel. I can't recall what I did because I actually set this up, was going to do this a long time ago. I can't remember if I set up an email for it already. So anyway, If you have a story to tell or whatever, go ahead and leave a comment, and I'll get back to you and get you on the show. If you have a funny rideshare story or a horrifying rideshare story, or how you became a rideshare driver, anything interesting, go ahead and email me, and I'll get back with you. So I believe that covers it. Yeah, until next time, y'all take it easy. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified of any future shows. Feel free to leave comments down below, and please smash that thumbs up. It helps the show out.